Tēnā rā koutou katoa, te tuatahi ngā mihi ki ngā mana whenua o te rohi nei, Te Aotearoa, Ngāti Toa Rangatira, Ngāti Tama, Ngāti Mutunga, me taranaki whānui hoki. O tira mihi ki a koutou kua huihui mai nei, ki tēnei kōrero. He kōrero mo ngā taki e pāna ki tēnei ao, ki tēnei ao hurihuri. Kanui te koa, kiti te nui o ngā kanuhi Māori kua tai mai nei. Quite a change from previous NDFs. I noticed in most of the presentations this morning there's a strong Māori element through most of the speakers, so that's cool. I'm going to hand over to Aleisha now.
We might be doing a bit of this throughout. Kia ora, ko ruapehu te maunga, ko Aotearoa te waka, ko te ati haunui a pāpārangi rātou ko Ngāti Haua, ko Ngāti Maru ngā iwi, no Taumaranui me Kamapōtia me Inia'o, kei te noho au ki te wanganui ātara, ko Aleisha Amohia tōku ingoa. My name's Aleisha, and I work at Catalyst with Chris. I've been working on Koha and other open source collection software since 2014, and I went to Vic and I do a bunch of gender equality work and Indigenous rights and tech work on the side. So that's me.
Tēnā nō tātou. Ko waiau, he uri hau o kaitahu rātou ko katima moi ko waitaha hoki. Ngō moi raki ahau, engari I whanau au I kawakawai te nota. E tipu mai au I whanganui, e noho ana au ki whanganui a tara I naia nei. So I'm Chris Cormack. As it said, I'm the blonde one in that photo. As if you couldn't tell, that is me and Topi Pūriri at Waitangi 1976. So that kind of dates me. One of the original Koha developers. I work at Catalyst IT in the senior leadership team there. My role there is to try and make Catalyst IT a better place for Māori to work at and a better place for Māori and Māori organisations at iwi and hapu whānau hapori to work with. So just a small job. I was a board member at Toha Toha, which does no longer exist, and previously Creative Commons. I was a board member of NDF for a while there as well. And I have another job at Te Rangatiratanga, which sits under the Data ILG, the Data Iwi Leaders Group, under the Iwi Chair Forum, which is the best job title I've ever had. He mā whitiwhiti matahiko ki te kākahu o Hāneriranga at Te Rangatiratanga. So I don't know if any of you know weaving, but mā whitiwhiti are the cross stitch, so the digital cross stitch of the cloak of Hāneriranga. Hāneriranga is the atua of data. That's me. Oh yeah, we can do the next one. Cool. Oh. Yeah. While we're here, we're just speaking on our own. I'm not speaking on behalf of Te Rangatiratanga, definitely not on behalf of the iwi chairs or Catalyst, unless you really like it, in which case I am. If you don't like it, it's all me. And anything you don't like that Aleisha said, that's my fault as well. So.
All right, so today we want to explore how deeply held cultural values, specifically kaupapa Māori and the critical concept of Māori data sovereignty, can reshape our approach to the technologies that we use for cultural stewardship, especially in libraries and in archives. Technology is often presented as neutral, but it's always a reflection of the values of its creators. So technology, even when it's artificial, has a whakapapa. So we're going to share a kōrero paki, a story today rooted in Aotearoa, using the journey of Koha, which is the world's first open source library system, as a powerful case study. The story of Koha, originating from community need and interwoven with Māori principles, provides valuable lessons. We'll discuss how core values like Manaakitanga, Kaitiakitanga and Tino rangatiratanga can be embodied in technology, the crucial link to Māori data sovereignty, the role of technology and language revitalisation, and the potential for community-driven systems to better serve our diverse communities.
So yeah, technology often emerges from corporate goals, but what happens when it arises directly from community needs, grounded in local values? So let's look at the origin of our case study, Koha. So as probably, I hope most of you are aware, Koha began in Horowhenua and Levin, Foxton, Shannon and Tokomaru, the libraries, in late 1999. The Library Trust there had a Y2K problem, so they had a system that didn't understand 4 digits for a year, so it just was going to go from 99 to 00. It plays all sorts of havocs with your returns and overdues and all those kind of things, so it just wouldn't work. It was a proprietary system as well, so we couldn't fix it, even though technically we would have been able to, we legally couldn't. So they faced, and the other proprietary options that they could buy at that time were prohibitively expensive or didn't work because they were designed for places that weren't running rural internet over phone lines, over electric fences and all that kind of stuff that you had in '99 in New Zealand. So to the credit, their response wasn't typical, and a lot of the credit is to Horowhenua Library Trust and to people like Rosalie Blake, who sadly passed on, but Joe Ransom, who's in the audience here, is another one critical to it. They commissioned a new library system, which was built locally by Katipo Communications and tailored to meet their individual needs. This decision reflected a move towards self-determination, and I was lucky to be the lead developer on that initial project. The system was gifted the name Koha, signifying a gift, a reciprocity, a relationship. This embedded a Māori value from the outset. Then in 2000, the software itself was released as open source, a true gift to the global library community. This values-driven, community-led origin provides a powerful contrast to the dominant tech narratives and sets the stage for how different values can shape technology.
So how can abstract cultural values translate into tangible technological features or practices? We're going to explore some key kaupapa Māori principles and see how they can manifest using Koha as an example.
Just before you move on, that's me again, at Waitangi again, with my mum and Nanny Ada Davis.
So Manaakitanga is the first one. It speaks to generosity, care and reciprocity. In the digital realm, open source models strongly reflect this. And we've got a quote on the screen, I'm going to read it out. Manaakitanga is an old word, but it remains a beautiful way of approaching relationships, whether they be between friends, family, clients or business associates. Living by the principles of Manaakitanga means stopping to ask, whose mana am I encouraging? And am I elevating others, whether that be through words or actions? In uplifting others and giving them respect and aroha, we also hold our own mana in balance. So the Koha example shows this really clearly. The initial code was a gift and it sparked a global community where improvements are shared back freely, benefiting everyone, a digital gift economy. We also find that good software, good technology is built by teams who have experienced Manaakitanga, who have been nurtured. And in this digital gift economy, we have a global community that is motivated by building something that is stable and secure and solves problems for people. And in doing so, we end up with a system that empowers libraries and organisations and other stewards of data and knowledge to show manaaki to their communities and to the collections that they look after. Our next value is Kaitiakitanga. Kaitiakitanga is active guardianship and stewardship, particularly of taonga or treasures and mātauranga or knowledge. How can systems support this responsibility? Flexible platforms like Koha offer the potential for digital Kaitiakitanga. Their customizability allows institutions to potentially define culturally specific metadata or implement access protocols based on local tikanga. This work takes dedicated effort. It's not something that can be templated and copy-pasted across all different types of systems because it's acknowledging that people who use technology have different needs and different backgrounds and different motivations. And so flexible platforms like Koha allow for that configurability and allow it to be more widely applicable, but in a really customized way. So this kind of thing is easy with Koha by using things like the metadata frameworks feature or any of the hundreds of system preferences that Koha has available by default.
And that's Aoraki, Mai Maunga, and then, or Mai Mauka, and then Kororua Pihu, Aleisha's one on the right there, if you didn't recognise those two.
We also have Tino rangatiratanga, which is about sovereignty, autonomy and control. You probably recognise this one from Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Technology can either enable or restrict this. So open source systems, exemplified by Koha, directly enable Tino rangatiratanga. Communities can modify the software to fit local needs, avoid vendor lock-in, and maintain control over their own data and technological future. And something that's special about the Koha open source community as well is that the users of the system, the libraries and the other organisations, actually have control in how it develops and how it becomes enhanced over time through being able to directly request features or bug fixes, and in some cases even being able to build those themselves. And we've run a number of workshops with our libraries and helped them make their own contributions to the software they use every day, which is really incredible and something that is very unique to open source software.
Before I start on this one, I just want to touch back on the Kaitiakitanga as well. One of the you can just leave it like that. One of the neat things around Koha too is that a lot of open source software is that it's low resource intensive. We heard earlier this morning about how much resources AI and stuff use. When you run data centers and you put a data center is essentially a fridge. So you're building a big fridge to cool stuff down, then you put a whole lot of stuff in there that heats it up, which you put a whole lot of servers in that generate heat. The more servers you put in there, the more cooling you have to put it down. By building a system that can run in a distributed and local fashion, you avoid that. So we not only does there kaitiakitanga of people, but of the taiao and stuff as well, by choosing systems that are lower resource intensive. So on to my other passion, one of my many, Māori data sovereignty. So the concept of Māori data sovereignty, or even indeed Indigenous data sovereignty, is crucial. For Māori data sovereignty asserts the right of us as Māori to govern Māori data from, about or impacting Māori as a taonga. So in the definition we kind of use it te kahureranga, it's digital or digitisable data from us, our whenua, our mātauranga, our taiao, our thing. So you'd be incredibly rare to find a data set created in Aotearoa that isn't either fully Māori data or has a large component on. So you can kind of almost think of it in your head as doing proper data sovereignty. So what kind of technological features support this kind of move towards Māori data sovereignty? So in the Te Manaakitanga, there's 6 pou that stirred. One of them, the first one is rangatiratanga, which we touched on. So systems that allow local hosting within Aotearoa, like Koha, like other open source systems, keep the data here and they keep it under local governance, respecting sovereignty. So one of the things that people may or may not be aware of with the moves of these mega corporations like Microsoft and stuff to open data centers here, that doesn't solve the problem, because the US have an act called the Cloud Act, which means that if you're a US company, your data is under US jurisdiction no matter where in the world it is. This came about because they wanted some emails. Microsoft had them in Dublin. They refused to give them to them, so they made a law saying that you have to. So essentially, if you put your stuff in Amazon, Google, Microsoft, whether they have a data center here or not, it still comes under US legal jurisdiction as well. So that's where this allowing you to host where you want to host is vitally important. And I think in the crisis that we are in as a world at the moment, and the role that some of these corporations are playing in ongoing genocides in Gaza and the surveillance technology and that, do we want to be hosting with them as well? So I argue not. So that's a whole other tangent. Ask me about that at lunch. But also it allows for kaitiakitanga. So they allow for us to implement tikanga-based rules of access and control rather than rules that have come from an external context. So they you can align them with ethical frameworks such as the CARE framework that came out of the First Nations in Canada, which is collective benefit, authority, responsibility and ethics. But you could also align them with what's shown here, the Māori data governance model, another really important thing in supporting data sovereignty is the context or the whakapapa of the data. No data point is a data point. Everything is contextual and related to everything else. Everything came from somewhere, everything's going somewhere, everything is related to everything around it. And without what they call provenance or metadata, you can't do that properly. So allowing a system that allows you to record it in the way that works for your context, for a Māori context, for ideally even for like hapu level context is great. And it allows you to maintain those relationships. So the model, like, I don't know if you've read it, but it's only 74 pages. You can probably read it over lunch if you want. The Māori data governance model is a really good way of working through that. So in there it points out things like needs supportive infrastructure, it needs, in that whole data infrastructure, it needs software that respects that Tino rangatiratanga element, but it also goes through how you collect, reuse, and distribute. So there's 8 po, but the underlying one, which you probably can't read, data classification is the one that underlies them all. If you don't know what data you have, how do you care for it correctly? So technology like Koha can help provide the infrastructure, but true sovereignty requires community-led governance. It requires hapu and iwi-led governance. The technology can only go so far. I think that's me.
So, Indigenous languages like Te Reo Māori are taonga. Technology can play a vital role in their revitalisation, or whakaoranga reo. Systems designed with multilingual capabilities from the ground up are essential. How can they support languages like Te Reo? One of the ways that Koha does this is through interface translation, allowing users to interact entirely in their language, which moves us beyond tokenism. Systems like Koha achieve this through community translation efforts. Another way is through bilingual or multilingual cataloguing. So Koha supports standards like MARC, which allow describing resources in multiple languages within the same record. And another way is through culturally relevant knowledge organisation. So Koha enables the use of Indigenous subject headings like ngā upuku tukutuku to reflect Indigenous worldviews, although practical implementation of this can be challenging. I remember going in my school library looking for stories about Māori and having to go to the myths and legends section. This is what that's speaking to. It's understanding what culturally relevant knowledge looks like and how to organise it in a catalogue that is respectful and also, which is the whole point of the library, to make it accessible to the people who are looking for it. Truly supporting language involves more than translation. It requires integrating Indigenous perspectives into how knowledge itself is organised. Flexible platforms like Koha offer pathways for this deeper work. Oh. I should talk about what's on the screen. Yeah. So this is a screenshot from the Koha record editor, and it's showing a drop-down of languages which come from a plugin that we built for one of our libraries in Australia. They have a lot of content that is in Indigenous Australian and Torres Strait Islander languages, and they wanted to be able to present on the record what languages those were. And so through partnership with them, we created this plugin, which meant that they could filter in a bunch of all of these languages and present that content in a way that made sense to the people who need to know. So that was something that was only possible, again, because of open source and people having the motivation to make this kind of information accessible.
So one of the neat things for me is like I was chatting with some people the other day about, that I never would have thought 26 years ago, sitting and living, talking to Joe, that I would have been in Marseille, which is where I was a couple of weeks ago, working on the same library system and stuff as well. So it's this global community that has grown out of something that started here in Aotearoa. So community-driven technology often fosters global connections, a digital Whanaungatanga, if you will. The story of Koha is a great example of this. From its origins in Aotearoa, from the Horo Whenua, it's spread globally. It's now used in over 19,000 libraries around the world. You can kind of see those all the dots. I don't know where that one up there is. I feel like someone just put the wrong GPS coordinates in for that. I'm fairly sure there's not, unless that's an oil rig, who knows? It could be. So yeah, we have Koha on every continent except Antarctica. There's 2 libraries there. It'll happen. Even if I have to go down and do it myself, but it'll happen. But yeah, it's growing. There's amazing stories. The whole of Turkey use it on one cluster, so that's 1,129 libraries on one cluster. So you've got a consistent experience through the whole of Turkey. The little one kind of, that's Ulaanbaatar Public Library, that's the capital of Mongolia. So there's some really neat libraries using it. And so it's created kind of this worldwide community connected by shared values and software. I was talking to some of the other developers last month, and they were asking, was it an intentional thing? And it kind of wasn't, although it was. So by choosing the name and by the way we released and the way we talk about it and the way we bring the community into the software project, we kind of embedded these values of Manaakitanga and mahitahi and all these kind of things, not through necessarily consciously doing it, but that was just the way we worked. So it just kind of imbued through the project. So the other neat thing that we do is we have KohaCon, which is an annual conference, and it's the community's hui. It rotates globally and returns to Aotearoa periodically. I made a rule and I wrote it on the wiki in 2006 that we can't have the same conference, and I can't be in the same continent within 3 years. That was just because I wanted to travel. And it's worked really well. So it's been everywhere. It's been Nigeria, it's been Argentina, it's been Greece, it's been the Philippines. It's here in November, here in Wellington. So 2025.kohacon.org, and you're welcome to come along. But it works in the way that we as Māori know you have to sustain and build relationships. Kanohi ki te kanohi, eating and drinking together, talking and building those relationships. And that allows for discussions, arguments to take place and not go wrong. If someone's just a faceless email address, it's quite easy to be mean to them, but if they're the person who sat next to you and shared their dinner with you in Nigeria, then that's a person. So that personalisation, there's a lot you can do digitally. You can't feel someone's wairua, you can't really feel their ahua over a screen. So that sitting next to each other is still really important. And I think that's the thing that has made Koha last 25 years when so many other projects have come and gone in the meantime.
So values-driven, community-led technology projects face unique challenges, or ngā wero. Balancing diverse global user needs with specific foundational cultural values is a constant negotiation in large open source projects. Authentically embedding deep cultural concepts like tikanga Māori into software requires ongoing dialogue and care, avoiding superficiality. So this is just speaking to what Chris just talked about with KohaCon and with these kanohi ki te kanohi meetings. And the picture on this slide is another one of those. It's Chris at the Marseille Hack Fest just a few weeks ago. And it just demonstrates how much value there is in bringing these people together to talk about software, because that room was packed. And it's where some of our biggest problems get solved and some of our coolest ideas get created. Resource constraints can limit the ability of institutions to fully leverage the customizability offered by open systems. So, ngā ara whakamua, future pathways, what's next for culturally grounded technology? Deepening support for Indigenous data sovereignty, aligning with those care principles, supporting mechanisms like TK labels, and integrating with sovereign infrastructure. Using stories like Koha as a model for decolonising technology, proving that this software can be built differently. And fostering Indigenous technological leadership, solutions that are built for us and by us.
So the journey of Koha, our case study, illustrates how technology can be intentionally interwoven with cultural values, like Manaakitanga, Kaitiakitanga and Tino rangatiratanga, fostering global Whanaungatanga while supporting local needs. It challenges that myth of technological neutrality and offers a real example of how systems can be developed to support rather than erase cultural identity and self-determination.
So the core message that we're leaving with you with today is that grounding our digital stewardship systems in Indigenous values and data sovereignty principles enables us to serve our communities more effectively and ethically. And we really implore you to ask, whose values does the technology that we use embody? How can we build and choose technologies that better reflect our diverse communities and the cultural treasures we serve? Ngā mihi nui, thank you. I think we've got 4 minutes for questions, maybe? Kia ora.
Move to the next slide.
I'll come in to do some question stuff. Kia ora, thank you so much. Everyone, the Q&A portion of this takes place through Slido, which is on the QR code on your name badge, so please go there to submit your Qs for us to A. I'll start off, if that's all right, while they come in. You were talking about data centres being located within Aotearoa and being owned locally. Recently, France and Germany have joined forces to create an alternative to Google Docs that is locally owned. In what way do the sort of the failings of big tech becoming more apparent create opportunities for these sorts of more locally owned and locally led projects?
I'll start, and then I know Chris will have more to say. One of the key opportunities that presents for us is that we know that the knowledge and experiences and mindsets that these big tech corporations have when they're creating solutions like this is that they are different from ours. And so the New Zealand tech sector and the New Zealand information sector has an opportunity to upskill ourselves and be present in that conversation and make sure that we're not following and adopting the same software and algorithms and knowledge patterns that they're putting out in the world just because they're there. Ours are different. Ours are valuable to us for different cultural reasons. So this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we're in that conversation creating solutions that match our values and our mindsets.
Yeah, Aleisha knows me well. We've worked together for how many years now? 9, 10, something? Yeah. Aleisha first started at Catalyst when she was 16 as part of our academy and never left. She's now taken my job. And I'm wearing the same shirt in that photo. It was on purpose. Let's just go there. So yeah, no, I think Aleisha kind of summed it up. It's an opportunity to resist digital colonialism. Like, there is a homogeneity over the internet. English is the predominant language, and American and Western ideals are the predominant ways of thinking and stuff. And we have an opportunity to not buy into that. I think there's massive value in respecting other ways of thinking and viewing knowledge as well.
Awesome. I will come in to read a question off the screen. How does tikanga work practically within your systems? How do you avoid superficiality and utilise Indigenous values within a practical setting? Just a small one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just a little one. There'll be a little presentation this afternoon that touches on that as well, from Te Wainui in the audience there, and Ani a little bit touches on it. But basically it does, the technology itself doesn't, it allows you to. So it doesn't restrict you from doing it, but as we mentioned, it needs to be a community effort. That tikanga needs to be baked into the organisation that's using it, and it needs, so what we don't want to do is force you to work a certain way with the technology. We want the technology to be able to work how you want to work. It's on you to bring that tikanga into your organisation and then into the technology, if that makes sense.
Excellent. And one last one, are there applications for Koha beyond libraries?
Yes. So Koha is basically very basically, a massive database. It can be used to store information about anything. So libraries, that was the traditional and original intention for it, but if there's something that you have a bunch of and you want to be able to track information about it and potentially its movements, then Koha is applicable. So it can be used for stock management, it can be used in galleries and archives and museums. At Catalyst we have Pokemon in our Koha. Anything that you want to store and store metadata about is useful. Koha can be used for. Be creative. You use it for something and then tell me what you did.
Excellent. Thank you so much. A huge round of applause of amazing talk.